everyone. Welcome to Pursuing Joy, where we discuss audacious stories of joy infused strength. I am starting a Working Genius series because I believe that's actually where joy kind of starts with the Working Genius philosophy or methodology theory, however you want to describe it. I have Nathan Floom here, and he is a Working Genius facilitator and trainer. And Nathan, if you want to introduce yourself, where you are, and what you do with Working Genius right now.
Yeah, thank you, Julie, and thank you so much for having me here. I'm really happy to talk with you today. So, hi everybody out there. My name is Nathan Floom. I am a learning and development consultant for Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. We are one of the, if not the largest, community college in the entire state of Ohio, located in Dayton. And I work in their workforce development department. So we are a department in the college that services the community and their workforce needs. We cover everything from advanced manufacturing, healthcare simulations. And my area of that world is in leadership and training and organizational effectiveness. And that is really where Working Genius kind of comes in. That's something that we've identified that we think has massive value to everybody, because I think as Patrick Lencioni says, every job is a widget job, which we can talk more about. But I think what I like most about Working Genius is that there's a lot of assessments out there, and sometimes when I go to different organizations and visit with them, some people are kind of like, oh, great, Nathan's here. I don't really know him, but I'm going to get to know him, and he's going to tell me what my workplace horoscope is. And I'm like, I quickly debunk that, because that is not what this is. This is a Working Genius is an assessment that is all based on productivity, what kind of joy we have in the work that we're doing. And so that's how I love to talk about Working Genius, and that's how I like to show up, is hopefully with our geniuses leading.
Yes. All right. That was a perfect description. So we were just chatting about naysayers and people that aren't quite sure about the assessment, or we also know the people out there that are over assessmentized, right? Like they
Yeah.
too many assessments, and they're like, how is this different? And we like to say that it's 80% productivity and 20% personality, and the
Absolutely.
working geniuses out there, or what Nathan just said is he used the word widget. And so that's the acronym for wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity.
Yeah.
And your geniuses, I believe, are
Discernment and invention.
Okay, exactly. So, but you were very tenacious when you scheduled this after our chat yesterday. So I'll give you a thumbs up on tenacity for the day.
Hey, that's my number 3. That's my top competency.
Okay.
So I'm a DITGU. So these are discernment and invention, followed by tenacity and galvanizing. And then my 2 frustrations are enablement and DITGU. Wonder and enablement. So
Wonder and enablement. Okay.
yeah, the stars really aligned. I'll say that. I looked at my schedule and your schedule. I'm like, the only day this can happen is today. So
okay.
So
yeah. All right. And it's Friday the 13th.
Lucky Friday.
Lucky Friday. Yes, exactly. All right. So in our previous chat, you discussed a teaching role that you were in, and then you went into training. And can you tie in kind of how you made that transition, why you made that transition, where joy falls in line with that, and even your geniuses?
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked in this role in training and development of the workforce for just over 2 years. And before that, I worked in adult education for about 8. I did that for a long time. With adult education, I focused on getting adult students ready to join the workforce. I worked helping them develop basic skills. I taught GED classes for a while. I also taught English as a second language for a big part of that. For many years, I taught refugees in Dayton. All refugees have to take English classes through our grant-funded program at the time, and I did that for a while. And I really enjoyed it. I met people from all over the world, probably from 60 to 100 countries I've met and had people in those classes. Um, I really look back on that experience and value it because it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about the world, how people view it, where they come from, their experience, and how they have had to go through things compared to my own.
Hmm.
And it was really eye opening, and I really did enjoy it. That being said, it was one of those things where I probably stayed in that role for probably 2 to 4 years longer than I should have.
Okay.
I'm very change resistant. I like,
Oh, okay.
so I was always, I liked what I did, and it was tough because, I showed up, I liked what I did. I felt like every day I got to wake up and help people. And that was really cool. Um, there was a point where I think I probably just got kind of burned out on it, and maybe I lost my joy, you know, and and maybe had some compassion fatigue with it. And it reached the point, especially after the pandemic and coming out of that, where I was like, I really need to have other things on my radar that I could transfer these skills of meeting with people, talking with people, training people, and apply them in a new way. So
So what was the ultimate defining factor that said, I'm going to switch to this and I'm going to start looking
yeah.
towards something else? What was that moment?
Yeah, I think I reached a point, thinking about working genius. I told you my frustrations are enablement and wonder, and galvanizing is the lowest of my competencies. So I think in that job, I really perhaps had to work in my frustrations probably more than I even realized at the time. Now that I look back on it, now that I've become certified working genius and talk with it, with all kinds of different organizations. I realized, maybe in that role, um, I had to enable too much. I was forced to, not forced to, but it was a lot more galvanizing than I'm used
Hmm.
to doing. Um,
So it's draining you.
it was draining me. I think so, and I kind of realized that if I didn't make a change, I would just be doing this forever. And I think for some educators out there, if that's their passion, hats off to really have a long, enriching career in that and change lives. I think that's amazing. And I realized for me, it got to a point where it wasn't. I needed something more than that job could give me,
Hmm.
and I had to take control and make a change to find more joy, to challenge myself, maybe more in alignment with my geniuses of discernment and invention.
Right. Okay. So when I use Working Genius in the recruiting process,
Mhm.
so if I were to be interviewing you, let's say you were in that role, you had your resume with that role, and you applied for a similar position,
Mhm.
and I asked you what tasks bring you joy or make you feel alive or energetic to when you go home, you get to go into,
Mhm.
phase two of the day with the most energy, or what tasks are you doing that make you want to come home and take a nap and you're not showing up best for your family. So you're proving the point that even though someone can do it and they're competent in it and even getting nominated for awards in it, doesn't necessarily mean that that is where they're going to be the most productive, or and it's also a huge indicator of burnout.
Mhm.
Something that you said to me that so used to teach, and it's funny, my children brought this up today. I used to teach English as a second language online
Wow, that's
to
awesome.
Chinese children,
Yeah.
and online, and so you had to be very vivacious, right, to get the when you're working with someone online.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot about that culture as well too. And but my children today were saying, when you do your podcast, you need to take it down a notch. You kind of sound
Mhm.
like you are when you're trying to excite 5-year-olds. I
Mhm.
said,
Mhm.
okay, I will
Yeah.
take I will
Yeah.
take notes. So okay,
Yeah.
so hopefully
Yeah.
I have been able to take that down a little bit. And you were saying that the intersection with those cultures also taught you a lot
Sure did.
as
Sure did.
well. So tell me about what you are doing currently that is incorporating your geniuses, bringing joy to you. You are feeling more productive in the environment. Tell me more about what's you do currently.
Yeah, so currently I'm a professional facilitator and training. So I travel around to all of our different clients and kind of satisfy their training needs. Working Genius is just kind of one part of what we do. We have a full leadership program and supervisor trainer program that a lot of clients, big ones, all the way up to small clients, all the way up to big, really engage with us and have myself and other facilitators come and kind of help set them up for success. So the way I like to describe it is I'm an in-your-face sort of trainer. I don't do a whole lot online. We do some, synchronous online training on
Hmm.
Zoom and whatnot. But really, I like going out, being in new people's workplaces and meeting with the clients and their teams and helping them out and delivering some awesome leadership skills and team building skills. Hopefully, in a fun, exciting, and energetic way. And I do that probably, well, in the last year. So our fiscal year will end here next month. I will have delivered 111 trainings in the last year.
Oh, really? Okay. So can you think what was the last industry or corporation that you taught a working genius workshop to? What was the
Ooh, yes. So I haven't taught. I had the pre-meeting. Their workshop's coming up next Friday, but I want to talk about this group. So this is a
okay?
group of people that deal kind of in the financial world and managing like different we'll call it funding streams for clients that come in and all
Uh-huh.
that stuff. And what's interesting is, it's my largest group ever. We're doing 30 people. And I did their big team math. We're breaking them out in units too, so it's more approachable that way. But what's interesting is not a single person on the entire team has their frustration in enablement.
Really? I was
Yeah,
wondering. I was like,
30 people.
what's the pattern? All right. So
Yeah,
nobody has enablement as a frustration
yeah,
and they're in the financial. That's very
yeah. And
interesting.
and we talked about it, it's like, well, that's what we do. Like our job, we are um the helpers. We make things happen for the people that we serve and want to help get connected to things. And yeah, I just thought it was remarkable how that was sort of reflected
Right.
there, and really heavily weighted on the kind of landing the plane, so to speak, that
Mhm.
enablement and tenacity, the end stages of work where things are really happening and very concrete, and we're bringing things home in the stages of work of working genius. That ideation, activation, they were really heavily weighted on the implementation, and it was really cool to talk with them about that and use my genius. I have the genius of discernment and invention. And I love.
Mhm.
I think discernment is really a lot of listening and thinking, and that's what I love having the conversations. I love being in front of groups and engaging in that conversation, and really listening intently to try to figure out, what's really going on and how people really feel. So
Mhm. No,
it was a great meeting. I left feeling like this is awesome.
no, that is awesome. So what do you have an example or is there an industry or
Mhm.
a type of job where or corporation that has more naysayers about the assessments
Mhm.
or is have you seen that
Mhm.
in a particular area?
I think it's an important thing to remember in the training world where you're kind of brought in as an outsider to a certain degree. That if HR has decided, for example, we're going to train all the supervisors in leadership, or we're going to do this working genius session because we want everybody to be more productive. It's easy to come in as an outsider and have some resistance, and it's important to realize that. And I kind of lean into it a little bit, and I kind of make it my mission to, in my own way, sort of try to win people over, by saying, hey, like I get it. You've taken all these assessments. You're told you have to be here. I get it. But let's have some fun. Let's just see what we
Right.
can do and kind of chill out and talk this through and see what nugget of wisdom might be there for you that you didn't have before. And that's really what it's all about.
Awesome. Do you have an example of like a particular
Mm.
person's aha
Mm.
moment, or a group of people when they meet
Yeah.
their students?
Yeah. So I had somebody take the assessment, and their frustration was in enablement. I guess I'm picking on enablement.
It's my frustration as well. So let's go for it. Let's pick on them.
Yeah, sorry, enablers out there, and for anybody listening, enablement in Working Genius is they're the helpers. They're the people that love to pitch in, get the work done, be there with the team, trying to help them succeed in any way they can in it, doing the work towards that later stage of the process work. And somebody was like, "Oh, but I do pitch in, I do help, I am a part of this thing," and we talked about it for a little bit, and I said, "But imagine that. What if you did that at like 100%? What if in your job, like of all the other parts of work, and all the things we have to do, if we took that and we pushed it to the extreme?
Mm,
How would you feel if you did that at 100% every single day, and you were that person?" And this individual's like, "Oh, wow, okay, now I get the frustrations." And you would feel that stuck feeling by
mhm,
being stuck in something that, we all have to do our frustrations sometimes.
right.
Every job is a widget job, every job is a Working Genius job. But to shift the weight to 100% in the frustrations, being stuck there isn't a good feeling. And I think for that person, they kind of are like, "Oh, I get it. I see now."
Yes. So that makes me think of, so I when I saw my assessment for the first time and saw enablement as a frustration, it kind of crushed me a little bit, because I was the same way. I was like, oh, but I do like to help people, but I do like to help people in my way, not necessarily the
Mhm.
way that they necessarily want help, right? Or the way, or even help with in my own geniuses, right? Bring in the wonder and the discernment, and that's my
Mhm.
help. It's not something that I'm just going to be constantly, or helping again. I have the discernment to discern how they want to be helped, and then probably more than likely,
Mhm.
someone, if I were to be in a job where I was having to be in enablement all the time, I would be constantly trying to help, in my way.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so do, how does how do you how do you see? Well, let me bring up one other point. So tenacity is also one of my frustrations,
Mhm.
and that's not surprising to me, but I'm always envious of
Mm.
people because of tenacity, because they're the ones, like, I want to be the one that get it over the finish line. Like, I have envy for that, and I consider that more of like the work, right? Like, that's the way I look at it. So when you look at your frustrations, how do
Mhm.
you approach them? How do you visualize your frustrations or go
Yeah,
after?
so my frustrations are wonder and enablement. And when I think about wonder, it's asking the big questions like, what about this? What about that? Is there a better way? Should we be over here? Should we be over there? And I think those big picture questions are super important. I think everybody needs to ask them. But for me, if I'm part of like a committee or a strategy session, and
Mhm.
we just get in that like big question, big picture stuff for too long, I feel trapped. I'm like, we need to like, my discernment genius is like, let's just pick one and move on. Like, let's pick the most efficient, workable way, and let's go for it and see what we need. And again, I keep using the word stuck, but that's how I feel with wonder. Is just we're just dreaming, and I think that's really valuable for a little while. But yeah, I get burned out fast on that. My other one is enablement. I do like helping. I like helping people, but I think it's with enablement, you can't be everything to everybody. Is kind of how
Right.
I look at it, and I will help anybody as much as I can if they ask, but there reaches a point where we can't just keep doing tasks. We need to execute on some things, which I think is
Right.
probably more of a tenacity way of looking at it. But um, yeah.
Okay. So you just get, so I just had a thought on that just based on what you said because
Mhm.
so I do try to be everything to everybody. And it does drain me. So it
Mm.
totally makes sense.
Yeah.
That would be my frustration. It is very draining for me and try
Mhm.
and attempting to be
Yeah.
that. So that is an excellent point. Okay, so can you tell me where, either now or sometime in like the recent past of where you have been finding joy either professionally,
Mhm.
personally, in a season of growth? What is it? Where are you finding joy?
Yeah, I find joy, I wouldn't say I'm new to this industry of training and learning and development really after 2 years, but I really find a lot of joy in being kind of like an eternal student in a way. I
Okay.
love researching, and I'm an avid reader. I publish my reading list on LinkedIn every quarter, and then at the end of the year, I do like a big, huge list of all the books I've read, and I love just amassing knowledge and trying to be that resource for people in some way. So that brings me a lot of joy. I think that's probably my discernment
Mhm.
um, coming out there. And I also enjoy, I love going out and training and facilitating people. I really do. When I go out and train somebody, it's like um, the whatever I have going on that day, like kind of goes away, and I tell people that I kind of go into a state of non-thinking, like I'm just so dialed into the people that I'm working with at the time. And I think for me, that's how I know like I'm in the zone, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Now that is different because teaching one
That's
thing
what yeah.
isn't that the same, and maybe it is. Maybe I'm in a different space now, but before it was. I think it's just a different type of teaching style. It's a different world completely. It's a completely different audience, and for me, it just feels different. It just feels different. It feels good, and that's kind of how I know. That's how I know. Like at this moment, anyway, I'm doing it.
Okay. So I was gonna ask, you answered the next I was gonna ask you to define the difference for you between
Mhm.
teaching and training. What was your how did you know to go in that direction when you knew you were done with the teaching?
Um, how did I know? I would say
Were you just testing things out, or did you say, "I'm gonna go towards training," like
it really, I don't know how to describe it other than I was looking, and I'm pretty well connected, and it was recommended to me and to check out, and I was like, I need to make a change, and I'm like, let's go for it. And I did the homework and got some certifications along the way, which I was lucky to do early on in my first year of this job. And yeah, the rest is history. It just it came along. I thought it was very transferable to what I
mhm.
was doing, and lucky. Thank you to Sinclair, and I'm lucky that they were like, "Hey, he has all the skills. Let's go for it." And it's been great ever since.
Alright. So, one kinda obsolete question. What was your favorite, subject in school?
My favorite subject was always English. Always.
Okay.
I'm an English major. I love literature. I did some writing classes as well. I have a master's degree in English and in writing and some creative writing too. So I've done some interning and like publishing before.
Okay.
I guess you call it old school print publishing now. You don't really see much
Right.
print print stuff, but I enjoyed all that. Is there a huge market for it? Not necessarily, but that's what I was. My education's in.
Okay. Alright. So do you consider yourself a writer? Do you write?
I have, in the past, and I've had a few things published in like small literary journals. But this was also like probably 15 years ago. So haven't really got kind of gone away from that. But
Mhm.
in this industry, I think there's a lot of opportunity, in writing and whether that be blog posts or articles or resources. So that's something I'm thinking of getting into more, maybe in the next couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you currently reading?
Ooh, I just finished reading a book called Dignity. I believe that's by Donna Summers. Somebody can fact check me on that. But it's a book on dignity. We just did a book read at Sinclair with it, and it's about how that's kind of like a fundamental, I don't want to say right, but I guess that's what it is, that everybody wants. And when our dignity is violated, in the book, the author writes about how it can feel almost like a physical pain when we're disrespected and not listened to and treated as less than or juvenile. It was a fascinating read. I think there's a lot into it. I enjoyed that. I just started. I usually do a mix of audiobooks and the regular ebooks or whatever, turning
Me
pages.
too.
So I just read the book Dignity, and I just started Death by Meeting by Patrick Lencioni.
Oh, yes.
I think I've read The Five Dysfunctions. I've read Working Genius, and there's a lot that people connect with Working Genius to meetings. And I'm like, I need to do the homework on that to really. I know a little bit about it, but I really need to bring that home. So that's kind of like my next step.
Okay. No, that's on my list as well. Is
Mhm.
it the same kind of format, the story format that he's used
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's I think probably one of the keys to his success as a writer is that he writes business and teamwork and strategy books that could be incredibly boring, but he makes them interesting by telling a story, which that's one thing I've learned doing this work is people love stories, and um, sometimes the crazier story about your experience, the better, that proves the point. And I think Patrick Lencioni has definitely tapped into that, and it's quite
Yeah,
successful
that's
for
true.
him. So,
I think his books are better on Audible as well, also.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
yes, so that is a great way to kind of end this podcast, because the whole reason for me beginning this podcast is that stories really inspire, and I think they're pivotal in people like getting ideas, people leaning into their joy, people learning something new. I think stories are just they make a huge difference in people's
yeah,
lives. And yes, Patrick Lencioni as an author, writing things that could be in very textbook, right? He brings them to life in a great way. All right, Nathan, thank you so much. We'll use, and we're going to put it on the screen here as well. How can people get in touch with you, and maybe the Sinclair website,
yeah.
different information like that? Can you tell us what that would be?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me. It's Nathan Floom at LinkedIn if you'd like to connect there. We also have you can look up Sinclair Workforce Development on LinkedIn, and then if you Google Sinclair Workforce Development, I believe it's sinclair.workforce.edu. You'll find us there, and feel free to connect. Happy to talk more.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Julie. Appreciate it.
All right.